Throughout the years, it's become clear that Five Nights at Freddy's was never supposed to end. Game after game, Scott Cawthon couldn't help but tease that the story wasn't over, despite us believing that each game would be the last. But then Pizzeria Simulator and Ultimate Custom Night came along, and that actually was the end, at least for Scott's games. But that doesn't mean that those last two games didn't tease that the story wasn't over. I think they did, whether Scott intended them to at the time or not. I believe Scott has been dropping hints about where the current story is going for years now. This theory is a wild one, and I promise you don't want to miss it. Let's get started. Because of the way FNAF gained popularity, Scott has had to tell the story of FNAF backwards. He didn't know that FNAF 1 would be as popular as it was, and he definitely didn't have a story planned out.
You know, I did not have the entire story planned out. Oh, you know, some kind of mad genius that had, you know, 7 games planned out from the beginning. No, I did.
So we had to take the details from the first game and make them make sense in the second game. Details that he didn't think twice about when making the first FNAF game now had to make sense with the story he was crafting in the second game. If Scott wants a detail from the past games to mean something, he can make it mean something. And I think he's doing that right now with the circus. In my last video, I told you about all of the connections to circus and carnivals recently. There was this found in the game files of Ruin that says something cool that maybe foreshadows carnival. We've got the carnival-themed mascot costumes in Ruin. A carnival was brought up in the epilogues of the Tales books, and we've got a circus happening in the background in Fury's Rage. I also explained that these new games seem to be telling a similar story to the Silver Eyes trilogy, and where that story ends is Circus Baby's Pizza World, a circus-themed restaurant. All signs are pointing to that we're probably heading to some sort of circus in the future, and the only circus-themed place we know of in this franchise is Circus Baby's Pizza World. The only place we've ever seen Circus Babies is in the Silver Eyes trilogy, and the Silver Eyes trilogy made something very clear. The theme of Circus Babies is clowns. There are clowns everywhere in this place. Clowns on the walls, people dressed up as clowns, clown animatronics. Scott obviously wanted to drill this into our heads. Keep that in mind for later. During my search for more proof regarding Circus Baby's Pizza World, I immediately thought of the Circus Gallery in the sister location bunker. This is the main room that Circus Baby was being held in, but based on it being called the Circus Gallery, I'm guessing there were also a bunch of things from Circus Baby's Pizza World in that room. In my last video, I told you that the Circus Gallery is connected right to Fredbear's Family Diner, and I explained why I think the FNAF 6 pizzeria is Fredbear's Family Diner. I said that the alleyway Easter eggs in FNAF 6 look just like the alleyway where Charlie was killed, and the whole point of the game is upgrading and reusing an old pizzeria. Fredbear's Family Diner was owned by Henry, so it would only make sense that he would reuse the restaurant he already owns. But that's where I left it. I had no more proof, until I found something that's been right in front of our faces for years now. During the office gameplay of FNAF 6, if you turn everything off, you can actually hear the restaurant operating. You can literally hear the kids playing, indicating that the office gameplay area is connected directly to the restaurant. This is further proven by the drawings on the walls. These drawings feature characters we see in FNAF 6. We see the Rockstar animatronics and even Lefty. But there's one drawing of a character that isn't featured in FNAF 6 at all: Fredbear. Why would there be a drawing of Fredbear in this office? Well, it's because this place used to be Fredbear's. But if this place used to be Fredbear's, like I said earlier, Fredbear's was connected directly to the Circus Gallery. And what if I told you that there's one more drawing in this office that doesn't belong? If you look to your right and turn up the brightness, you can see a clown poster, the one thing heavily associated with Circus Babies. So we've got Fredbear indicating that this place used to be Fredbear's, and we've got a clown indicating that this place is directly connected to the Circus Gallery. But are we sure that this clown represents Circus Babies? I mean, there is the lemonade and fruit punch clown in FNAF 6, so it could just be a creepy drawing of one of them. I needed a little more proof. And while researching, I could have sworn that I've seen a similar clown poster before. The first instance of a clown showing up in this franchise that I can remember was in the first real teaser we got for FNAF 6, where we see Scrap Baby in an alleyway with a clown on the wall, further solidifying the connection between clowns and Circus Babies. The next time we see a clown in this franchise is in Lefty's secret alleyway cutscene in FNAF 6. On the wall, we see a poster that's meant to represent the Afton family. We've got William and Michael, the crying child as a bear with sharp teeth for obvious reasons, and then a a clown to represent Elizabeth, aka Circus Baby. This clown has a wide smile and is wearing green and purple pants. This clown is actually featured again in Scrap Baby's cutscene on a different poster. The same clown with the green and purple pants, once again being associated with Circus Baby. This same poster can be found in the Ultimate Custom Night office as well, and it seems to be advertising a circus, which is presumably Circus Baby's Pizza World. The poster features the clown, an elephant, and the words "You don't want to miss it." There's also some other letters at the top of this poster in purple and green that I can't seem to make out. So if you have any idea what this says, let me know in the comments below. For years now, we've all assumed that Circus Baby's Pizza World features Circus Baby and probably the Fun Times too. But I think what these posters and the Silver Eyes trilogy were trying to tell us was that it was much more than that. Previously, I told you that the circus-themed mascot costumes we see at the end of Ruin actually showed up in the Silver Eyes trilogy first, and that these costumes were used to foreshadow us going to Circus Baby's Pizza World in the next book. And considering we get a literal elephant costume dressed up like a clown in Ruin, just like how we get an elephant on the poster for Circus Babies, I can only assume that the games are headed in the same direction. And the idea that there were more than just the fun times at Circus Baby's Pizza World isn't new. One of the biggest unsolved mysteries in FNAF history has to do with Night 4 of Sister Location. The suit that Baby puts us into has remained a mystery to this day. We learned that it came from Baby's old pizzeria, aka Circus Baby's Pizza World.
You're inside something that came from my old pizzeria.
It's been so hard to figure out what this is because it's unlike anything we've seen in this franchise. The suit seems to have faceplates, just like the Funtime animatronics, but it's definitely not as high-tech. The suit also seems more handmade, with the inside of it almost having a leather texture. It's like this is an older version of the Funtimes, but more handmade, and more like an actual costume. Like I said, this is unlike anything we've seen in this franchise, is what I was saying until I did a little more digging. About a month before Security Breach came out, some official concept art of Scott's designs got posted online. This is the concept art. Upon first glance, these look like mascot costume versions of Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica. But if you look closer, you can see that these aren't just costumes, these are costumes with faceplates and stomach hatches, just like the Funtimes. These are literally older versions of the Funtimes, just like the suit we were put into on Night 4 of Sister Location. The faceplates are even placed in a similar way to the costume we see on Night 4, with them appearing on the front of the face separate from the rest of the head. But the suit on Night 4 was a Springlock suit.
I'd recommend that you keep the Springlocks wound up.
Does that also mean these are Springlock suits? Well, like I said in my last video, Charlie describes Springlock suits in the Silver Eyes trilogy by saying, "I think they were costumes. Sometimes people wore them, and sometimes my father put them onto the robots." Which means that Springlock suits can be worn by humans, but also put onto endoskeletons. And if you zoom in close on the top right of this image, you can see an endoskeleton wearing the mascot costume. Now, do I think the costume on Night 4 is one of these characters? Maybe, but probably not. I think a costume that's in this style that is more circus themed would be a better fit, since Baby said that the costume came from her old pizzeria, which was a circus themed place. What I think these costumes are way more important than the one on Night 4. In the story The Mimic from the Tales books, we learn about Edwin, who is a robotics genius hired by Fazbear Entertainment to turn a bunch of random mascot costumes into actual animatronics. And during the story, Scott made an effort to point out which animatronics Edwin was creating. Edwin was turning the following mascot costumes into animatronics. Quote, a brown Freddy Fazbear, a bright yellow chick, a blue bunny, and a pirate fox. This is the first time we learned that the main 4 animatronics we see in the games didn't start as animatronics, they started as mascot costumes and were turned into animatronics. And I believe that these, or something similar to these, were those mascot costumes that later got turned into the 4 main animatronics we see in the games. And you probably know by now that I think Edwin is a parallel to Henry. A big reason for why I believe this is because Henry was the one who created the main 4 animatronics, not Edwin. Henry says this in FNAF 6.
The loss of innocence, the loss of everything to so many people. Small souls trapped in prisons of my making, now set to new purpose.
The thing about Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy starting as mascot costumes is something I don't see talked about a lot. But what were these mascot costumes used for? There's currently no restaurant that we know of that's older than Fredbear's Family Diner. Well, I think that's because these costumes weren't being used at a restaurant. In the story The Mimic, and now in Ruin, we learn about a bunch of random mascot costumes, featuring characters we've never seen before. In the books, there's a mushroom costume, a gopher costume, a jester costume, and in the games, there's a bird and a lion. I think these costumes are trying to tell us that the story of FNAF started at a traveling carnival. This is further backed up in the Silver Eyes trilogy. When Charlie is going through Henry's workshop after his death, she finds a book about the history of the traveling carnival and of the circus. This is something that's never explained again in the whole trilogy, but I think Scott put that in there as a hint to how the story of FNAF began. In Security Breach, there's one collectible that stands out from the rest: Fredbear's singing show. I actually really liked how MatPat interpreted this poster in his timeline videos. This poster is obviously very old, with it being in black and white, the ticket price only being 50 cents, the gramophone, and the pie-shaped eyes. I mean, this looks just like an old 1930s Mickey Mouse poster, with the same pie-shaped eyes and the same style of lettering. But the name of the poster doesn't sound like a restaurant, it sounds like an attraction. And I think this attraction was a part of the traveling carnival, and was where the story of FNAF began. I think what the story The Mimic was trying to tell us was that Fazbear Entertainment bought out the traveling carnival, and they started turning the mascot costumes from that carnival into animatronics for their new restaurants. The main 4 animatronics stayed together and formed Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, but the goofier costumes were reused for Circus Baby's Pizza World, a circus-themed restaurant. But not all of the mascot costumes were turned into animatronics. In the epilogues of the Tales books, we learned that this is the case. A lot of these mascot costumes were being held in the FNAF 6 pizzeria, and in the epilogues of the Tales books, it's only really the goofier costumes that were left in the FNAF 6 pizzeria. Those goofier costumes were still around, and I think were reused for Circus Baby's Pizza World, and I think we were put into one of those on night 4 of Sister Location. I've suspected for a while now that Circus Baby is a key part of the story Scott and Steelwool are trying to tell. I've already gone over all of the evidence for why I think that's the case in my previous videos, but while researching for this video, I found something interesting. There's an Easter egg that's extremely rare in the Curse of Dreadbear DLC that's gone unexplained for years now. When you beat a minigame, you're taken to this area that looks like a birthday party inside of a barn. Behind you and to the sides of you are posters, and by very rare chance, you can get 3 clown posters. And if you haven't noticed yet, this is the exact same clown poster as the one in FNAF 6. And we know that this poster and clowns in general are heavily associated with Circus Babies. And when you pick up the darts and throw a dart at each poster, this happens. A black light turns on, revealing it's me. This only happens with the clown posters. I think that the story of Five Nights at Freddy's began with a traveling carnival, with the characters we all know and love starting as mascot costumes before being turned into actual animatronics and getting their own restaurants. But although Fazbear Entertainment bought out the carnival theme lived on with Circus Baby's Pizza World. There, they reused some of the old mascot costumes from the carnival. One of those costumes was the one we were put into on night 4 of Sister Location. I believe that this concept art is showing us the type of costume we were put into, but what costume that specifically was is a mystery I'm guessing we'll learn more about when we revisit the Sister Location bunker in Help Wanted 2. Subscribe if you enjoyed, and thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for watching.